The notification ping at 11:47 p.m. should have been my first warning. Tess never texted me after 10 unless someone was dead or she needed bail money. I was sprawled on our sagging couch, laptop balanced on my chest, debugging code for yet another freelance client who'd probably stiff me on payment. The glamorous life of a laid-off IT specialist in scenic Millbrook, Maine, population 3,200 and shrinking faster than my bank account. I glanced at my phone. The message wasn't for me. I'm going to spend the weekend with your friend. I find him more interesting than you. My wife's thumb had apparently slipped while texting someone else. The intended recipient was listed as J. Anchor in her contacts. Real subtle, Tess. Nothing says secret affair like a boat emoji. I sat up, laptop sliding to the floor with a satisfying crack. 23 years of marriage, and this is how I find out? Not through lipstick on a collar or mysterious credit card charges, but through a misdirected text message. If this were a Stephen King novel, at least there'd be supernatural elements to make it interesting. Evan? Tess called from the bedroom, her voice honey-sweet. Did you get my message? I stared at the phone screen. The smart move would be to confront her, demand explanations, maybe throw some dishes. The Evan Clark of 6 months ago, back when I had a steady job and illusions about my marriage, would have done exactly that. Instead, I typed back, "Okay, have fun." Silence from the bedroom. She was probably staring at her phone, wondering if I'd finally snapped or just didn't care anymore. Truth was, I'd stopped caring around the time she started referring to my unemployment as Evan's little vacation at dinner parties, but I wasn't done caring about making her pay for it. I padded to the kitchen and grabbed a beer, my mind already spinning. 20 years in IT teaches you that information is power, and people are phenomenally stupid about digital security. Tess used the same password for everything. Our anniversary date followed by love. The irony wasn't lost on me. My phone buzzed. Another message. This one definitely meant for me. We need to talk when I get back Sunday. This isn't working. I almost laughed. After 8 months of her working late 3 nights a week and mysterious weekend girls' trips, now she wanted to talk. I cracked open the beer and settled into the kitchen chair that gave me a clear view of our neighbor, Mrs. Bauer's house. The old woman never slept and saw everything that happened on Maple Street. If I was going to war, I'd need intelligence. My laptop was cracked but functional, a metaphor for my entire life lately. I opened a new terminal window and got to work. If Tess thought she could discard me like yesterday's code, she was about to learn that this particular program had some hidden functions. The first hack was almost insultingly easy. Tess's iCloud account opened like a flower, revealing months of messages, photos, and call logs. My beer went warm as I scrolled through the evidence of my marriage's corpse. J was Jason Barrett, my former best friend and current owner of Barrett Marine Services. We'd grown up together, been best man at each other's weddings, shared beers and dreams of escaping this dead-end town. Apparently, he'd decided to escape with my wife instead. The messages went back 4 months. Started innocent enough. Tess asking about boat insurance for a client, Jay offering to show her around the marina. Then came the lunch meetings, the private tours, the photos that would make a sailor blush. My personal favorite was from last Tuesday. Evan's in one of his moods again, says the bills are piling up. Maybe if he tried harder to find real work instead of these pathetic freelance jobs. Jay's response, "You deserve better than a loser who can't provide for his wife. Come by the marina tomorrow. I'll show you what a real man's boat looks like." I saved everything to an encrypted drive, then kept digging. The deeper I went, the more I found. Tess wasn't just cheating, she was planning. Screenshots of divorce lawyers' websites, research on Maine's asset division laws, even a saved Zillow search for waterfront condos. But the real gold mine was a group chat called GNO. Girls' Night Out, apparently, though the conversations had nothing to do with cocktails and everything to do with infidelity. Tess, her realtor friend Heather, and gym buddy Lori had been covering for each other's affairs like some suburban cheating syndicate. Heather, Derek thinks I'm at book club again, haha. Lori, at least your husband doesn't follow you around like a lost puppy. Mike's getting suspicious. Tess, Evan's too pathetic to suspect anything. He actually thanked me for working so hard last week. I finished my beer and opened another. The old Evan would have been crushed, maybe cried a little, definitely called his cousin Frankie for emotional support. But something cold and calculating had settled in my chest, like ice forming over a lake. These people had mistaken my kindness for weakness, my trust for stupidity. Time to show them the difference. I spent the next 2 hours setting up what I mentally dubbed Operation Disclosure. Nothing illegal, nothing that couldn't be explained as a concerned husband investigating his wife's suspicious behavior. Just good old-fashioned digital archaeology with a modern twist. First, I cloned Tess's social media accounts to my secure server. Every photo, every message, every tagged location from the past 6 months. Then I created a simple script that would post selected content to her Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn profiles on a delayed timer. The beauty of modern technology? People document their own destruction. By 3 a.m., I had enough evidence to end 3 marriages and at least 2 careers. Tess had been sloppy, taking photos in Jay's boat, at fancy restaurants I couldn't afford, even in what looked like a hotel room downtown. Heather had documented her affair with Derek Morrison, Jay's business partner. Lori had been creative, juggling 2 different men while her husband worked double shifts at the paper mill. I set the timer for 48 hours and closed the laptop. Tess could have her weekend with Jay. She could play house on his boat, make plans for their future, maybe even work up the courage to ask for a divorce. But come Monday morning, when the good people of Millbrook were checking social media with their coffee, they'd get quite a show. I was halfway to bed when my phone buzzed one more time. A message from Riley, the 17-year-old tech genius next door who helped me with the occasional coding project. Yo, Mr. C, saw your lights on. Everything okay? Also, I got that drone footage you wanted from the marina. Some interesting stuff on there if you want to see it. I smiled for the first time in hours. Riley was a good kid, sharp as a tack, and morally flexible when it came to surveillance work. I'd asked him to do some security testing around town, purely for educational purposes. Send it over. And Riley, you might want to grab some popcorn for Monday morning. The show's about to start. Saturday morning brought the kind of gray, drizzly weather that made Maine look like a Stephen King novel waiting to happen. I woke up on the couch with a crick in my neck and the satisfying knowledge that Tess was probably waking up in Jay's bed, completely unaware that her digital life was about to implode. I made coffee and checked my phone. No messages from my loving wife, but Riley had sent over the drone footage as promised. The kid had skills. The video was crystal clear, showing Jay's boat, Second Chance, moored at the fancy end of Millbrook Marina. More importantly, it showed Tess climbing aboard Friday evening with an overnight bag. The timestamp read 6:47 p.m. She'd told me she was having dinner with Heather. I was studying the footage when someone knocked on my front door. Through the peephole, I saw Frankie holding 2 cups of coffee and wearing the expression he'd perfected during his 20 years as a state trooper, the one that said he knew you were lying but was giving you a chance to come clean. "Morning, cuz," he said when I opened the door. "Figured you might need some caffeine and conversation." Frankie Delacroix was my mother's sister's kid, 6 months older and infinitely wiser about the ways people screw each other over. He'd retired from the state police 2 years ago and now tended bar at The Chain, Millbrook's premier dive establishment. If you wanted to know who was sleeping with whom, who owed money to whom, or who was about to get arrested for what, Frankie was your man. "Tess working another weekend?" he asked, settling into the kitchen chair with practiced ease. "Something like that." I sipped the coffee. It was good. Frankie never brought cheap anything. "What brings you by?" "Funny thing happened last night." Jay Barrett was in the bar, buying drinks for everyone, talking about how he was going to upgrade his situation real soon. Kept checking his phone and grinning like he'd won the lottery. I kept my expression neutral. Jay's always been a talker. Sure has. But here's the interesting part. Heather Morrison was there too, sitting in the corner with some guy who definitely wasn't her husband. They kept looking at Jay like they were all sharing some private joke. Frankie leaned back in his chair, studying my face. Now, I'm just a retired cop who pours drinks for a living, but it seems to me like there's some kind of conspiracy brewing in this town. The kind that usually ends with somebody getting hurt. I met his eyes. What would you do if someone was conspiring against you? Depends. If it was just talk, I'd probably let it slide. But if they were actively trying to destroy my life? He shrugged. Well, let's just say I learned a few things about gathering evidence during my years in uniform. I made a decision. Want to see something interesting? I showed him the drone footage, the text messages, and selected screenshots from the GNO group chat. Frankie's expression never changed, but his coffee cup stopped moving halfway to his mouth when he saw the photo of Tess and Jay in what was clearly a compromising position. Jesus, Evan, how long has this been going on? 4 months that I can prove. Maybe longer. I closed the laptop. The question is, what am I going to do about it? Frankie was quiet for a long moment. You know, back when I was working, we had a saying, justice is what happens when the law meets the facts. Sometimes the law handles it. Sometimes the facts handle themselves. And sometimes good people have to help the facts along a little. He finished his coffee and stood up. I'm working tonight if you want to come by the bar. Saturday nights are always interesting at the Chain. You never know what you might overhear. After Frankie left, I spent the day fine-tuning my plan. The delayed social media posts were just the opening act. If I was going to destroy my wife's life, I needed to be thorough, creative, and completely untraceable. I started with reconnaissance. Mrs. Bauer was in her garden, pretending to weed while actually monitoring the neighborhood's comings and goings. I wandered over with my own cup of coffee. Morning, Mrs. B. Beautiful day for gardening. She looked up, her sharp eyes taking in my unshaven face and wrinkled clothes. Morning, Evan. Tess working again this weekend? Afraid so. Real estate never sleeps, you know. She went back to her weeds, but I could tell she had more to say. Mrs. Bauer always had more to say. Funny thing, though, I could have sworn I saw her getting into that Barrett boy's truck Friday evening, but my eyes aren't what they used to be. Bingo. Jay Barrett, the marina guy? That's the one. Drove right past here around 6:30, bold as brass. Had a woman in the passenger seat looked an awful lot like your Tess, but, like I said, my eyes. She trailed off meaningfully. I'm sure it wasn't her, I said. Probably just someone who looked similar. Mrs. Bauer nodded, but her expression said she wasn't buying it any more than I was. Course not. Still, if it had been Tess, I'd have gotten it on my security camera. I record everything these days. Too many strange cars driving through the neighborhood. I nearly choked on my coffee. You have security cameras? Oh yes, my son installed them last Christmas. Records everything that happens on the street, 24 hours a day, automatically saves to some cloud thing. She smiled innocently. Technology these days, you know? I spent another 20 minutes discussing the weather and the town's upcoming lobster festival before casually mentioning that if she ever noticed anything unusual, I'd appreciate a heads up. Mrs. Bauer assured me that neighbors had to look out for each other. That evening, I took Frankie's advice and headed to the Chain. The bar was exactly what you'd expect from a place called the Chain: dim lighting, sticky floors, and the kind of clientele that paid cash and minded their own business. Frankie worked behind the bar with the easy competence of someone who'd spent decades reading people's intentions. I was nursing my second beer when Jay walked in. He looked good, better than he had any right to at 42. The marine business was clearly treating him well. Expensive clothes, fresh haircut, and the kind of confident swagger that came from thinking you were getting away with something. He spotted me immediately and walked over with a grin that didn't quite reach his eyes. "Evan! Didn't expect to see you here. Where's Tess tonight?" "Working," I said. "You know how it is." "Sure do. The successful ones always work weekends." He signaled Frankie for a beer. "Speaking of work, how's the job hunt going?" "Still doing the freelance thing?" "Still freelancing?" I kept my voice neutral. "Actually, I've been thinking about expanding into security consulting. Amazing what you can learn about people when you know where to look." Something flickered across Jay's face. Too quick to be sure, but it might have been nervousness. "Security consulting, huh? Sounds interesting." "Oh, it is. For instance, did you know most people use the same password for everything? Email, social media, cloud storage, all protected by their anniversary date or their dog's name? Makes it incredibly easy to consult on their security vulnerabilities." Jay's beer stopped halfway to his mouth. "That's good to know." "Isn't it?" I smiled. "I've been doing some consulting around town lately. Amazing what people leave exposed. Photos, messages, location data. It's like they want to get caught." "Right. Well, I should probably—" "Hey, Jay!" Heather Morrison appeared at his elbow, slightly drunk and overly friendly. "Fancy seeing you here. Where's your weekend guest?" Jay's face went pale. Heather, apparently realizing her mistake, tried to backtrack. "I mean, I thought I heard you were— that is, someone mentioned—" "I think there's been some confusion," Jay said quickly. "I don't have any weekend guests." I looked between them, letting the silence stretch uncomfortably. "Weekend guest? Anyone I know?" "No," Heather said too loudly. "No, I was thinking of someone else." Definitely someone else. I finished my beer and stood up. "Well, this has been enlightening. Jay, give my regards to your boat. Heather, tell Derek I said hello. I'm sure he's wondering where you are." I left them standing at the bar, Jay looking sick, and Heather realizing she'd just confirmed everything I suspected. Outside, I pulled out my phone and sent Riley a text. "Phase 2 tomorrow. Hope you're ready for some real-world education." His response was immediate. "Born ready, Mr. C. This is better than Netflix." I walked home through the drizzle, already planning Monday morning's festivities. Tess thought she was so clever, playing house with Jay while her pathetic husband sat at home feeling sorry for himself. She was about to learn that underestimating people was a dangerous game, and I'd been playing it a lot longer than she had. Sunday morning arrived with unseasonable sunshine, as if the weather gods wanted a clear view of the chaos about to unfold. I woke up early, made coffee, and checked my countdown timer. 18 hours until the social media bombs went off. I was reviewing my digital arsenal when Tess's key turned in the front door. She walked in looking refreshed, satisfied, and completely oblivious to the fact that her life was about to detonate. "Morning, honey," she said, dropping her overnight bag by the door. "Miss me?" "Terribly." "How was work?" She had the grace to look slightly uncomfortable. "Oh, you know. Long hours, difficult clients, but I think I made some real progress." "I bet you did." I sipped my coffee. "Get any good photos for the company website?" "What?" "Photos. For marketing. I know how much you love documenting your professional achievements." Tess stared at me for a moment, clearly trying to figure out if I was being sarcastic or just making conversation. "Right. Well, I need a shower. Then we should talk. Looking forward to it." She headed upstairs, and I heard the shower start. Perfect. I had maybe 20 minutes before the "we need to talk" conversation that would end our marriage. Might as well make them count. I opened my laptop and made a few final adjustments to tomorrow's social media surprise. Then I sent a text to Riley. "Showtime in 5 minutes. You in position?" "Ready when you are, Mr. C." Got eyes on the marina. I walked to the kitchen window and looked out at Mrs. Bauer's house. She was in her garden again, but I caught her glancing toward my house. The woman had radar for domestic drama. Tess came downstairs 20 minutes later, dressed in what I'd learned to recognize as her serious conversation outfit, jeans and a sweater that said she was approachable but not trying too hard. "Evan, we need to discuss our situation." I sat at the kitchen table. Our situation? Our marriage. It's not working anymore, we both know it. Do we? She sat across from me, her expression carefully composed. We've grown apart. We want different things. I think it would be best if we took a break. A break. Like a vacation. Like a separation. She folded her hands on the table. I've been thinking about this for months. We're not happy, Evan. When's the last time we really talked? When's the last time we laughed together? When's the last time you came home on a Friday night? That stopped her. What's that supposed to mean? Nothing. Just wondering about your schedule lately. Lots of weekend work, evening appointments, overnight trips. I leaned back in my chair. Must be exhausting, all that dedication to your career. I work hard because someone has to. The bills don't pay themselves. Right. And I'm sure Jay Barrett appreciates your dedication. The color drained from her face. What did you say? Jay Barrett, old friend of mine, owns the marina. I'm sure you know him. Successful businessman, nice boat, probably a good client for someone in real estate. Tess's hands were shaking slightly. I don't know what you're implying. I'm not implying anything. I'm stating facts. I pulled out my phone and opened the photo gallery. Fact 1, you've been meeting with Jay Barrett regularly for 4 months. Fact 2, you've been lying about where you spend your evenings and weekends. Fact 3, you've been planning to divorce me while pretending everything was fine. I slid the phone across the table. On the screen was a photo of her and Jay kissing on his boat, taken with telephoto precision. Tess stared at the image, her mouth opening and closing like a fish. Where did you get this? Does it matter? The question is, what are you going to do about it? She pushed the phone back to me, her composure cracking. It's not what you think. It's exactly what I think. You're having an affair with my former best friend, you've been planning to leave me, and you've been stupid enough to document the whole thing. I pocketed the phone. The only question is whether you want to handle this quietly or publicly. Quietly, she said quickly. Evan, I know this looks bad, but it doesn't look bad. It is bad. You cheated on me, lied to me, and tried to make me feel like a failure while you played house with another man. I stood up. But here's the thing, Tess. I'm not the pathetic loser you think I am. I'm a man with very specific skills, and you've given me every reason to use them. My phone buzzed. A text from Riley. Package delivered. Check your email. I opened my laptop and pulled up Riley's message. Attached was a video file showing Jay's boat from multiple angles, time-stamped over the past week. The kid had outdone himself. There were shots of Tess arriving Friday evening, intimate moments on the deck, and this morning's departure. You see, Tess, the thing about technology is that it makes everything permanent. Every text message, every photo, every GPS location, it's all there if you know where to look. I turned the laptop around so she could see the video, and I've been looking very carefully. She watched herself kissing Jay on the boat deck, her face going from pale to green. You can't. This is illegal. You can't spy on people. Actually, I can. Drone photography in public spaces is perfectly legal. Social media monitoring of accounts I have legitimate access to is perfectly legal. And documenting my wife's adultery for divorce proceedings is not only legal, it's recommended. Tess slumped in her chair. What do you want? I want you to understand that actions have consequences. I want you to realize that treating people like garbage eventually comes back to bite you. And I want you to know that tomorrow morning, everyone in this town is going to see exactly who you really are. What do you mean? I closed the laptop. You'll find out. In the meantime, I suggest you call Jay and let him know that his weekend guest has been compromised. You might also want to warn Heather and Lori that their little cheating club is about to become very public. Tess stood up shakily. Evan, please. We can work this out. We can go to counseling, start over. No, we can't. You made your choice when you decided I wasn't worth your honesty or respect. Now you get to live with the consequences. She grabbed her purse and keys. I'm going to stay with Heather tonight. Good idea. You'll want to be with friends when the fireworks start. After she left, I sat in the quiet kitchen and finished my coffee. In 18 hours, Tess's carefully curated social media presence would explode in a shower of incriminating photos and messages. Her real estate career would be over, her social standing destroyed, and her affair exposed to everyone she'd ever tried to impress. But that was just the opening act. The real show would start when Jay and his friends tried to retaliate. I was counting on it. Monday morning, 8 a.m. sharp, my phone started buzzing like an angry wasp. Text after text, call after call, as my carefully orchestrated social media bomb detonated across Millbrook's digital landscape. I was sitting at my kitchen table with coffee and toast, watching the chaos unfold in real time. Tess's Facebook page had become a gallery of her greatest hits, intimate photos with Jay, screenshots of the GNO, group chat and GPS check-ins that painted a perfect timeline of her deception. Her professional LinkedIn profile now featured a particularly artistic shot of her and Jay in what appeared to be a hotel room. The first call was from Heather, screaming so loudly I had to hold the phone away from my ear. You psychotic bastard, how dare you hack our accounts? Good morning, Heather. I didn't hack anything. I simply documented what was already there. You ruined my life. Derek's filing for divorce, my kids won't talk to me, and I've been fired from the agency. Sounds like you ruined your own life. I just provided the documentation. She hung up on me. 3 minutes later, Lori called with similar accusations and threats. I listened politely, took notes, and reminded her that adultery was her hobby, not mine. By 9 a.m., my phone had quieted down, but the real entertainment was just beginning. I walked over to Mrs. Bauer's garden, where she was pretending to water her roses while actually monitoring the neighborhood's reaction to the morning's revelations. Quite a bit of excitement this morning, she observed. So I've heard. Social media can be dangerous when people aren't careful about their privacy settings. Indeed. She gave me a meaningful look. I suppose you've seen the news about your wife's professional difficulties. I hadn't, actually. Professional difficulties? Mrs. Bauer handed me her iPad, open to the Millbrook Gazette's website. The headline read, Local Realtors' Social Media Scandal Rocks Maritime Community. The article was brutal in its restraint, simply reporting the facts. Tess Clark, a prominent local realtor, had apparently suffered a social media malfunction that resulted in private photos and messages being posted to her professional accounts. Her employer, Coastal Properties, had issued a statement about maintaining professional standards and protecting client confidentiality. Between the lines, it was clear she'd been fired. Terrible thing, Mrs. Bauer said, not sounding terrible at all. Though I have to say, some of those photos were quite artistic. Your wife has an eye for composition. I was still reading when a familiar truck pulled into my driveway. Jay Barrett climbed out, his face red with anger and embarrassment. He stomped across my lawn like a man preparing for war. We need to talk, he growled. Good morning, Jay. Lovely day, isn't it? Cut the crap, Evan. I know what you did. I glanced at Mrs. Bauer, who had suddenly become very interested in her roses, but was clearly listening to every word. I'm not sure what you mean. Could you be more specific? The photos, the messages, the social media posts. You hacked into Tess's accounts and destroyed her reputation. That's a serious accusation. Do you have any proof? Jay stepped closer, his fists clenched. I don't need proof. I know it was you. Knowing and proving are different things. For instance, I know you've been sleeping with my wife for 4 months. I can prove it because you were stupid enough to document everything. You son of a... Careful, Jay. Mrs. Bauer is recording everything on her security cameras. Wouldn't want to add assault charges to your current problems. He glanced at the elderly woman, who waved cheerfully. Morning, Jason. Terrible business about those photos. I do hope your wife isn't too upset. Jay's face went from red to purple. His wife had apparently seen the social media explosion, too. This isn't over, Evan. Actually, it is. You see, I've been very thorough in my documentation. Every text message, every photo, every lie you've both told over the past 4 months. If you or Tess or any of your friends try to retaliate, I'll release the rest of it. And trust me, what went public this morning was just the appetizer. I pulled out my phone and showed him a video file. This is from last Friday night. Very artistic cinematography, excellent lighting. I'm sure your wife would love to see it. Jay stared at the screen, his anger deflating into desperation. What do you want? I want you to stay away from my wife, stay away from my house, and stay away from me. I want you to accept that your little affair is over and deal with the consequences like an adult. And I want you to remember that actions have repercussions. You've destroyed everything. Tess lost her job, my marriage is over, the whole town is talking. Good. Maybe next time you'll think twice before betraying someone who trusted you. Jay stood there for a moment, looking like a man who'd just realized he'd been outplayed by someone he'd underestimated. Then he turned and walked back to his truck without another word. Mrs. Bauer waited until he'd driven away before speaking. That young man seemed upset. He's having a difficult morning. Poor decision-making tends to catch up with people. Indeed it does. She smiled. By the way, I've been reviewing my security footage from the past few months. Amazing what you can see when you know where to look. If you ever need any additional documentation for legal proceedings, I'm happy to help. I spent the rest of the morning fielding calls and messages. Some were angry, friends of Tess and Jay who blamed me for the scandal. Others were supportive, neighbors and acquaintances who'd suspected something was going on and were glad to see the truth come out. The most interesting call came from Derek Morrison, Heather's husband. Evan? It's Derek. I wanted to thank you. Thank me? For exposing what was going on. I've been suspicious for months, but I couldn't prove anything. Now I can move forward with the divorce and get custody of my kids. I'm sorry it came to this, Derek. Don't be. Better to know the truth than live a lie. Listen, if you need anything, character witness, testimony, whatever, just let me know. Heather and her friends destroyed a lot of lives with their games. It's time they faced some consequences. That afternoon, I walked down to the Chain for lunch and found Frankie polishing glasses with the satisfied expression of a man who'd seen justice served. Quite a morning, he observed. So I've heard. Jay was in here earlier, drowning his sorrows in whiskey and self-pity, kept talking about how you'd destroyed his life and ruined everything. Frankie set down the glass and looked at me directly. I told him that people who play with fire shouldn't complain when they get burned. Wise words. He's not done, you know. Men like Jay don't accept defeat gracefully. He'll try to find a way to get back at you. I smiled. I'm counting on it. That evening, as I sat in my quiet house reviewing the day's events, I realized that the old Evan Clark was gone. The trusting, naive man who'd believed in friendship and marriage vows had been replaced by someone harder, smarter, and infinitely more dangerous. Tess had wanted to upgrade her situation. Instead, she'd created a monster, one who understood that in the modern world, information was the ultimate weapon, and revenge was a dish best served digitally. My phone buzzed with a final message of the day from Riley. Mr. C, this was better than any video game. When's the next level? I typed back. Soon. The final boss fight is just getting started.